When there's a serial killer on the loose and cops have no leads, the neighborhood boys decide to spend their summer tracking him down themselves. Before the internet, before VCRs, before video games, kids had to make their own fun. And when you're stuck at home all summer long, you'll do just about anything to pass the time, even if it involves tracking down a serial killer. If you grew up in the 1980s, are a fan of 1980s movies and culture, or you like the hit show Stranger Things on Netflix, Summer of '84 is going to be right up your alley. The kids all have great chemistry, and you're really going to enjoy getting to know them and going on the journey with them as they try to track down a serial killer as well as win over the girl next door. While watching this movie, I really enjoyed myself, but I'd never expected it to make my top 10 movies of the year. But then the third act really has kept me thinking for months after finishing it. It just does not go the direction you're expecting. The famous fictional arcade game Polybius, which supposedly kills anyone who plays it, is featured in the background of the arcade scene. But that's not the only thing. If you look closely, there are a lot of nods to 80s classic movies as well as some famous serial killers. For fans of serial killers, paper routes, riding bikes, walkie-talkies, neighborhood friends, family photos, girls next door, tree houses, the 1980s. The trials and tribulations of 8th grader Kayla Day as she tries to fit in with the kids in her class. LeBron James! Bo Burnham is one of my favorite comedians. I've been following him since he was 16 years old, recording cheesy, offensive, hilarious songs with clever lyrics in the bedroom at his parents' house. I bought all of his comedy albums, I've watched all of his comedy specials, I've watched every TV show and movie he's been a part of, including the short-lived MTV show which he starred in, directed, and wrote himself. I've even seen him live on 2 occasions. But after all of that, nothing that he has done made me think that he was the right person to make a movie about an 8th grade girl. I was clearly wrong. 8th grade has received near universal praise from the critics. Everyone I know who has seen it has really enjoyed it, and many of the girls who I have talked to who have watched it say it is the most realistic portrayal of being a middle school girl ever put on film. 8th grade features some of the most edge-of-your-seat scenes of the year, but unlike most movies, the feeling Burnham is able to make the audience feel are feelings that are felt by girls around the world every single day. Elsie Fisher was perfectly cast as Kayla Day. In fact, 80s teen queen Molly Ringwald has said that Elsie is the new teen queen. Plus, Kayla's little friend Gabe is one of my favorite movie characters of the year, so much so that I would watch an entire movie that is just about Gabe. Bo Burnham originally wanted Facebook to be the social network of choice used by the children in the movie, but when his real-life middle school actors told him only old people use Facebook, it was switched to Instagram and Snapchat. Even though Elsie Fisher has been nominated for and won several awards for her portrayal of Kayla in 8th grade, she did not make the cast of her high school play. Elsie Fisher's first role was the voice of Agnes in the Despicable Me movies. For fans of pool parties, video blogs, bananas, first dates, interrupting school assemblies, hanging at the mall, dads trying to be cool, makeup tutorials, LeBron James, Gucci. A man who is down on his luck finds out that he has a knack for telemarketing. First-time filmmaker Boots Riley has put together a very original and cohesive story. The vibe of the movie is very quirky. It's like a Terry Gilliam film or a Coen Brothers film. There's a lot of funny dialogue, and there's a lot of things happening in the background. Pictures, posters, t-shirts, commercials, billboards, even earrings that there's a lot of humor added in the background. The story starts off very simply. A man is down on his luck, his car is running on its last leg, and then he gets a job as a telemarketer until he can find something better. He finds out he's really good at telemarketing, and then things get a little weirder. And then they get a little weirder, and then they get a little weirder, till by the end of the movie, it's like a completely different movie, but nothing feels out of place. Everything flows perfectly from beginning to end. If nothing else, this movie should win an award for keeping its story a secret. Even the trailer doesn't give too much away, although I would recommend not watching the trailer if you want to be totally surprised. Donald Glover was originally going to star in this movie, but he ended up doing the Han Solo film instead, and he recommended his Atlanta co-star Lakeith Stanfield. Writer-director Boots Riley is the frontman for underground hip-hop group The Coup, based out of Oakland, California, and they had a 2012 album that was actually called Sorry to Bother You. For fans of Earrings, crappy cars that require innovation to use the windshield wipers. Telemarketing, white voices. Twirling signs, climbing the corporate ladder, interesting elevator music, art installations. An alcoholic music icon falls in love with a struggling artist after hearing her sing a single song. He will do everything in his power to win her heart and let the world hear her music. A movie about music needs to have good music, and this one does. And Bradley Cooper, who stars in and directs this film, wasn't known for being a musician. And that's because he wasn't before this movie came out. He taught himself guitar and took vocal lessons, but you would never know it because of how well he pulls it off. And if there's anyone in the world who still thinks that Lady Gaga hides mediocre vocals behind elaborate costumes and stage shows, you are going to be blown away by how wrong you are. Even though this is a remake of a remake of a remake, I somehow still didn't know the story. And I was totally shocked on multiple occasions at the direction things were going. The emotions are real, and the lack of any score throughout the film makes all the songs feel that much more powerful. While this isn't my favorite movie of the year, I would not be upset if it won all of the big Oscars. To make the movie feel more authentic, all of the songs were sung live. The climactic song, I'll Never Love Again, was sung less than an hour after Lady Gaga found out her real-life best friend had died of cancer. Many of the on-screen concerts featured in the film were filmed at Coachella 2017. For fans of drinking, playing sold-out concerts, finding a diamond in the rough, Bradley Cooper's Sam Elliott voice, good original music, garages, family drama. Ethan Hunt must once again save the world from some terrorists. You can think whatever you want about him in real life, but there is no denying that at 56 years old, Tom Cruise is the best action star in the world. He always performs his own stunts, even if it involves training by skydiving 8 times a day for 6 months straight, breaking his ankle jumping between buildings, riding a motorcycle at high speeds into oncoming traffic in Paris with no helmet, or learning to fly a helicopter and performing stunts that even seasoned stuntmen and helicopter pilots wouldn't attempt. And even though he's only 5'6", I'm not so sure I would bet against him in a fight against Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. In this 6th installment of the Mission Impossible franchise, you will be laughing and cheering at the ridiculousness of the stunts. And something about knowing that there's no green screen involved makes the stunts all seem that much more impressive. The movie's plot is fairly interesting, and the terrorist actions seem almost plausible, making it a little bit scary. The gadgets put James Bond to shame. The action and the set pieces are some of the best in recent memory, and the car and motorcycle chase scenes would feel right at home in a Fast and the Furious movie. I can't really pick a favorite action scene because there are so many great ones, but if I had to, it would probably be the early skydiving scene, or it could be the helicopter chase through the mountains. I think I'm going to start a petition to try to get Tom Cruise to be the bad guy in the next Fast and the Furious movie, blending the world's 2 best action franchises into one. Tom Cruise trained for a full year to perform the movie's skydiving stunt. The movie is comprised of 3,000 shots, 13 helicopters. There were 6 pregnancies on set. They filmed on 3 continents, and there was 1 broken ankle. The bathroom fight scene took 4 weeks to film. For fans of double crossing, lens flares, face masks, motorcycle chases, car chases, white bathrooms, European cities, helicopter chases, plutonium balls. Just another superhero movie, except this time it's rated R, and the 4th wall might as well not even exist. I liked the first Deadpool pretty well, but I didn't seem to like it as much as everyone else did. And now with the sequel, I seem to like it more than everyone else did. Go figure. Of all the movies I watched in 2018, this is the one that probably made me laugh the most. And on top of that, the 4th wall is broken so many times the audience probably deserves to have their name in the credits. Even with all the humor and the action scenes, there's also some pretty heartwarming and pretty heartbreaking scenes as well, and I was not expecting that from a Deadpool movie. The action scenes are great, and when they're not, Deadpool will look at the camera and explain that budget cuts made this scene look bad. I honestly freaked out a few times as I had a thought during the movie, and then a few minutes later, Deadpool would look at the camera and basically express the exact same thought that I just had to myself. Never experienced that before watching a movie. It was kind of freaky, but I really liked it. Every superhero movie trope you can think of from the past decade is in this movie. Deadpool makes fun of all of them. And if you are experiencing superhero movie fatigue like I am, this is going to be right up your alley. Matt Damon has a cameo in this movie as Redneck Number 2. Deadpool 2 features one of my all-time favorite post-credit sequences. For fans of Breaking the Fourth Wall, Type 1 diabetes, good-looking CGI explosions, Type 2 diabetes, bad-looking CGI explosions, witty one-liners, annoying levels of sarcasm. When Miles is bitten by a radioactive spider, he obviously turns into Spider-Man. The problem is, Spider-Man already exists. I've never really read comic books. I always preferred movies because my imagination wasn't good enough to bring the flat two-dimensional pages to life. While there are a few superhero movies and franchises that I really do enjoy, it is not my favorite genre of movie. I will say though, I was blown away by the 2002 version of Spider-Man featuring Tobey Maguire, and it is the only movie that I've ever seen twice at the movie theater in a single day. But after 2 sequels, a reboot with a sequel, another reboot with a sequel coming out, plus all of Spider-Man's cameos in the Avengers movies, Spider-Man video games, getting a little bit burnt out on Spider-Man. All that aside, this is the superhero movie to end all superhero movies. The animation is very unique. It's a combination of a bunch of things. It looks like a live action movie that has been cel painted, like Richard Linklater did with A Scanner Darkly and A Waking Life. It has a low frame rate like you'd see in an independent film. Some scenes look like they're motion captured like you'd see in a current generation video game. There are scenes that look like you're watching a 3D movie, but you took your glasses off, so everything's kind of out of focus. And then everything has a filter over it that makes it look like it's actually printed on the page of a comic book. Once you get the hang of that complex animation style, it's really going to grow on you. And on top of that, the movie is laugh out loud funny. The action scenes are great. The characters are great. Every time Kingpin was on screen, my wife would bust out laughing at how ridiculous he looked, but it fits right in with the style of the film. One of the best parts of the movie is that it is able to poke fun at itself and the oversaturation of Spider-Man. And while a whole lot of superhero movies came out this year and a lot that were critically acclaimed, this is probably the best of the bunch. This is Stan Lee's last movie cameo. It took 180 animators to make this film happen. For fans of cartoons, comic books, old-timey Spider-Man, swinging through the trees, cool uncles, broad shoulders, multi-dimensional portals, getting embarrassed by your parents. When Paddington Bear is jailed for a crime he did not commit, he must make a bunch of friends to help him escape prison, clear his name, and find the perfect present for his aunt. A kid's movie featuring a CGI bear was not really high up on the list of movies to watch, but the near universal praise really piqued my interest. Paddington Bear, without a doubt, is one of the most lovable and polite characters ever put on film, and his antics would feel right at home in a Charlie Chaplin-era silent film. The movie features all of the brilliant visual stylings of Wes Anderson without any of the quirk. The cast of characters is memorable, and the story, while it doesn't do anything new, is so perfectly executed I cannot imagine anyone watching this movie and finding something to complain about. It isn't necessary to watch the first Paddington film to enjoy the second film, but I have a feeling you're going to like this one so much you're going to end up watching them both anyway. Paddington 2 is currently the best reviewed film of all time on RottenTomatoes.com. Michael Bond, the creator of Paddington Bear, died 6 months before this film was released. Hugh Grant has stated this is his favorite film that he has acted in. For fans of Wes Anderson, jailbreaks, knuckle tattoos, marmalade, haircuts, visual comedy, being polite, being wrongfully accused. When the matriarch of the Graham family passes away, the rest of the family struggles to keep it together as they cope with their grief. From the opening scene of this movie that features a cool camera trick featuring a miniature model, I knew there was going to be something special about this movie. There is a dark cloud hanging over the Graham family throughout this movie, and it gets darker and darker as the movie progresses. Just when you think things can't get any worse, they do. As an example, the movie opens on a funeral, and that's the happiest scene in the movie. Hereditary is definitely not for everyone. It is dark and it is twisted, but it is so perfectly executed that I still want to recommend it for you to watch. What starts as a simple character study on how to deal with the loss of a loved one becomes something so much worse. There are some genuinely shocking and disturbing scenes in Hereditary that you will not soon forget. I wouldn't recommend watching this movie alone in the dark. You definitely want to have some friends along for some moral support. But to get the full effect, you definitely want to go in knowing as little as possible. The film is much more complex and beautifully shot than you would expect from a movie of this genre. The writer-director Ari Aster, this is his first film, so I cannot wait to see what he does next. Toni Collette has said that director Ari Aster was the most well-prepared director she has ever worked with. In my personal opinion, Toni Collette put on the best acting performance of the year. Writer-director Ari Aster has already finished 10 screenplays which he hopes to make into films over his career. For fans of Cookies with Nuts, Clicking Your Tongue, Miniature Models, Telephone Poles, Doormats, Spontaneous Combustion, Treehouses, Support Groups. With only 3 days left on his probation, a man must do everything in his power to stay out of trouble, but his best friend's not going to make it easy. If Friday and Do the Right Thing had a baby that was raised by Jordan Peele, Blindspotting would be the outcome. First-time filmmaker Carlos Lopez Estrada works wonders with a script written by real-life best friends Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal. Daveed Diggs you may know from his time on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Blackish, or for his Tony Award-winning role as Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette in the Tony Award-winning musical Hamilton. Blindspotting takes a lot of genres and a lot of concepts and weaves them together perfectly into a 90-minute masterpiece. It's laugh-out-loud funny, edge-of-your-seat thrilling, it's shocking, it's unpredictable, it has a good message without being preachy, and like Shaun of the Dead, if you listen and look closely, you're going to see a lot of things that come full circle by the end of the movie. Blindspotting does an incredible job of setting viewers' expectations and then continuously shattering them. And this applies to both characters and to situations. And when the movie finally explains what blindspotting actually is, you may find out that you've been blindspotting the main characters the entire movie. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but the climactic scene in Blindspotting is my absolute favorite movie scene of the year, and it could be one of my all-time favorite movie scenes. The alarm clock featured in multiple scenes of the movie is always set to 6:25 a.m., which spells out the word Oak on a telephone keypad. The movie was filmed in and is about the city of Oakland, California. For fans of used hair straighteners, selling sailboats, Crazy Bone, Scorpion Bowls, counting tree rings, psychology, $10 green drinks, moving trucks, spoken word, learning how Wayne Gretzky and Wesley Snipes are connected.